Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And first and foremost, I must apologize. This is actually old World War II footage. This was taken months before I started streaming this game as of recently. And yes, I have gotten the results to the Twitter poll, at least for now. And it seems like the majority of you want me to play another COD on stream, and I will be happy to do that tonight. And yeah, so I got a little bit of a new kind of mini series, so to speak, on the channel for you guys. And basically, you know how year after year we always talk about every new Call of Duty and how if they did this instead of this, and if they changed this up, or if they took this away and added this and all that kind of stuff, how this game could have been the perfect Call of Duty and so and so. So basically, while I was at work today for a good amount of time, I basically, in terms of all the Call of Duties, as of recently, in terms of current gen, I basically, except for Modern Warfare 2019, of course, I basically did a little pros and cons list and basically wrote down anything and everything that basically makes me think of all the good and bad about every single Call of Duty. And surprisingly so, I'm going to give you guys a little, I'm going to ask you guys a little something. I mean, I obviously have the answer, but before we start here, I'm going to ask you guys a little something. Which of the games, okay, from like, let's say Black Ops 3, Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare, Call of Duty World War II, Black Ops 4, and yeah, pretty much all the games as of this generation of console, except for Modern Warfare 2019, which one do you guys think had the least amount of pros and the most amount of cons? Let me know down in the comments section, and you may or may not be surprised. But anyway, let's get on to this. So we're gonna obviously start with World War II. As you can see, there's World War II footage. So we're gonna start with that one. And actually, surprisingly so, well, not surprisingly so, coincidentally so, it was the first game that was on the list that I wanted to cover, and it made all the sense in the world, especially since it's the game that I've been playing for a majority of the time lately. So in terms of streams as well. So here's the way it goes. So first I'm going to talk about the pros and everything in between, and then we're going to go into cons, and then how basically that, in my opinion, if they change things up a certain way, how it would make the game better and it would make it a perfect COD. So basically what we're doing is we're talking about all the good things and the bad things about the previous Call of Duties, and the things that could have been implemented as to what would make it like a perfect game. So, and I wanted to dedicate specific whole length videos to each and every one of these because there's so much to it, and at the same time I want you guys to get involved as well in your opinions, and you guys always have unique point of views as well, and your opinions are valid, of course, because the Call of Duty community is not just about the YouTubers or the tryhards. It's also about the casuals. It's also about the people that do know Call of Duty but don't care to make content. It's not their thing. So anyway, let's get on into it. So the pros go like this. The first one that I wrote down that was instantaneous to me was weapons. World War II has the greatest set of DLC weapons probably in Call of Duty history, especially since you can grind for them, and especially since more recently they basically released all the different kinds of weapons that they put into the game. And when you look at it as well, the balance for these weapons is actually an immense improvement over Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. It seems like Sledgehammer with this game, when you look at how they made Advanced Warfare and then how they made this game, it was very apparent that they were very much all about improving and correcting the mistakes that they did with Advanced Warfare while taking in feedback. When you put everything together, that seems to be the case. So the very first thing was that the weapons in this game were very solid, very balanced. I mean, obviously there were a couple things that were overpowered, just like every other Call of Duty game. But I mean, when it comes to weapon balance, Call of Duty is not meant to be a perfect game. But when you consider all the different amount of weapons that they put into the game post-launch, it's pretty damn well balanced. Seriously, it's I really have no. I mean, sure, there's annoyances here and there, but for the most part, I mean, I got to give Sledgehammer props. They did a really good job in that aspect. So moving on to the next one, DLC microtransaction system for the pros. I mean, the fact that you can grind for weapons, and for the fact that everything was basically grindable, and it wasn't toxic like it was in Black Ops 3. It was basically one of the top preferred and top received ways of getting weapons, and the microtransaction system wasn't toxic like it was during the Black Ops 4 life cycle or during the Black Ops 3 life cycle, just to name a few. So I think I can appreciate that, and I think the rest of the community can as well. And of course, let's not to mention that the weapon, except for the weapons that were new, the variants were just cosmetic, which was great. I mean, I love the fact that you can, like for instance with the bar, the base regular base bar is fine, but the variant is better, even though it does the same damage, same everything, because the iron sights for me personally is what makes a difference. So like I said, I appreciate that. The next one I actually have to say, create a class. Now it could have been better, but I would say for what they tried to give us, I mean, they didn't do pick 10, and they didn't do the traditional perk system or whatever, or the pro perk system. Obviously they kind of made their own version of pick 10 called pick 13 in Advanced Warfare, but they really wanted to again kind of be their own type of game simultaneously, which I have to actually commend, and it's really solid in the only way that I would see, especially after the overhaul. The overhaul is the next thing, but on this list of pros. But the thing that I see as well is that the only way, other than the overhaul, which they did, which improved it dramatically and drastically, as well as the way the ADS works and everything like that, but the sprint out time. But the thing is that the only way that this could have been even more perfect, or if not a damn near perfect new create a class system, was if they let us have 2 basic trainings by default as opposed to 1. So if they were to do that, then I think the community would have been like, holy shit, guys, you couldn't have done a better job with this. And then obviously I think for the cavalry division, you would have a choice of up to three, because that's what the cavalry division does, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so again, going back to the overhaul, that's the 4th thing on the pros list. The overhaul basically changed this game for the better, especially with the way the divisions work in terms of a few divisions. It really balanced them out a little bit more. Some of the other divisions were a little bit nerfed and seemed a little bit pointless after the overhaul, but for the most part, the system was very well received, and it was a much better thing. And of course, the sprint out time in terms of the weapons and how those worked, especially with the SMGs and assault rifles or whatnot, allowed you to, and the infinite sprint time as well, really changed the game for the better, and it really needed it. And it was the best way that they could change the game with this kind of an overhaul without necessarily like resetting the whole damn thing, quite frankly. So props to them for that. And the last thing, honestly, as basic as it is, the time to kill in this game feels really good. The time to kill is really, really solid. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. It's very, very solid. And as a bonus, I actually have to say, and the headshot sound in the game also is very, very satisfying to hear. I still slightly like the Advanced Warfare one a little bit better. But with that being said, I really like this one as well. It's really hard to choose. It's really hard to pick and choose sometimes in terms of like what headshot sound you prefer, but this one sounds really cool, so that's kind of like a bonus or whatnot. It wasn't on the list, but I just thought I'd mention it, especially since some of my people on stream have mentioned that as well. Okay, so now we're on to the cons, and I'm going to go a little bit more in depth in this one because the pros are pretty self-explanatory, but the cons require a little bit more of an explanation, so that way you guys can see where I'm coming from, and so that way you can we can kind of mix and match your opinions with mine. So the first one that I saw here is the maps and the spawns. Now they kind of correlate, because maps can screw up spawns and kind of vice versa in a sense to a certain degree. So here's the way it is. I don't think that the map size themselves were the problem. They contributed, the spawns were pretty good in terms of that aspect, but here's the thing. These are 3-lane maps. Okay. And I like 3-lane maps. As a matter of fact, I prefer them to whatever shit show of a map design philosophy they have with Modern Warfare 2019 or whatnot, right? Okay, now that's not to say that every single type of map except for 3-lane absolutely suck. No, it's just that it just seems like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing with Modern Warfare. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. But these are 3-lane maps, but they've also decided to put lanes within lanes, and what that causes is a very when people can, like, let's say you're somewhere and there's only 2 ways, one from each side to where you can enter. All of a sudden, if there's one more additional way, to a certain extent, it actually adds an element of chaos, and it actually slows the game down. But I think they did it on purpose to make the game's meta the way it was. They wanted to make this game slower. It was very apparent. But because of the fact that they added in a small lane within a lane, that actually kind of ended up disturbing the flow of the game, if that makes any sense. To a lot of people, the game's flow was perfect. I understand that. But in terms of, especially when you're coming back from the game that was previously released that was so damn fast-paced, and then you come to this one that's actually slower than Black Ops 2, for instance, which was a solid boots-on-the-ground Call of Duty, and make it slower to this degree, it kind of, that's one of the reasons why the overhaul was so much praised, because it upped the speed of the game. But it didn't necessarily fix this issue. And especially with free-for-all, for instance, there's a couple things that I disagree on the spawns, obviously. People are always going to spawn behind you, even though, you expect the spawns to be a little bit more spread because of the extra lanes that they've added within the 3 lanes, right? So you expect the spawns to be a little bit more diverse, but no, they're not. They're actually tighter than they are in a traditional 3-lane map with no extra added lanes within lanes. And that creates a lot of confusion. That's one thing that always throws me off tremendously, because I'm always really good about predicting spawns, but in this game, much harder, especially in free-for-all. And Team Deathmatch, very reasonable, but you can affect spawn flips a little too easily, in my opinion. But anyway, that's my words on that. The next one, it's pretty self-explanatory. Score streaks were weak sauce. They were weak sauce. They could have easily been stronger. Like Paratroopers only getting 2 to 3 kills every time is basically inexcusable, and they should have made the score streaks stronger. And I'm surprised that they didn't learn that from Advanced Warfare, because everything except the assault drone was pretty much weak sauce and or nerfed. Like, for instance, the Paladin had all the potential in the world, but the fact that it was limited in terms of you couldn't fire it the entire time because it would overheat was a problem, and it was something that was really not necessary, especially for a streak that high. But anyway, moving on to the next one. Snipers were a little bit too easy to use. The way the cones worked and the way the aim assist worked was just really, really strong. Like, for instance, this is what they did. They increased, for instance, they aimed down sights slower than Black Ops 2, but the aim assist is stronger than Black Ops 2. So therefore, you have a sniping system that's actually more or less the same amount of potency and effectiveness and lethality that it was in Black Ops 2. And especially before the overhaul, to where the sprint out time was just really slow. So the overhaul helped with this a little bit, but it's still too strong. And a person can still be way off target, and then bloop, as Thunder likes to say, easy headshot. And there's people that literally run and gun and can drop you faster than any other gun in the game, and that's just the fact. So I think the snipers were a little bit too strong. I think if they just made it to where it was a little bit harder to aim with those snipers, not necessarily as hard as Black Ops 3, even though there are people that would like that, deep down inside, myself included, but I understand how that sniping is a very touchy subject, and you have to find that sort of balance. So in my opinion, if they just made it a tad bit harder, I think that would have balanced it a little bit more. And that's it. I mean, I'd rather have Black Ops 2 style, and I'm not being biased with Black Ops 2 being my favorite COD. I'm just saying I'd rather deal with Black Ops 2 snipers that aim down sights faster, but at the same time are harder to use than World War II. So there you have it. All right, moving on to the next one, shotguns. I mean, I don't think they're called the Dragon Breath in this one, but those shotguns, those incendiary shell shotguns or whatever the fuck they're called, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, really easy to use, really easy to get a kill. It gives noobs a weapon, but yeah, I guess that was their subtle way of catering to noobs. So there you go. Shotguns are a pain in the ass in this game, and I hate them. Those incendiary shells specifically. All right, skill-based matchmaking at launch and during the duration of the game's life cycle is another thing. I really don't need to say any more. It doesn't belong in public playlists. If you go to play that game right now, the game is a lot more playable. So, yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we still are talking about this in 2019. As a matter of fact, it's going to get worse from the rumors and the sounds of things, and thanks to the skill-based matchmaking patent. But and the very last one, believe it or not, that I personally didn't like, especially at the very beginning of the launch of the game, and to a certain extent even now, espionage. The fact that somebody can shoot you with one bullet, like let's say you get in a gunfight, but you win that gunfight, and then all of a sudden the rest of their team knows exactly where you're on their minimap, and it paints you on the minimap for 10 seconds, and I know they nerfed that down to probably 6, but still, it's pretty damn ridiculous. I mean, it's basically giving the entire team a very powerful version of a UAV on your ass. So it's espionage, especially in the beginning of the game, was stupid, and it still is stupid, and it didn't need to be required, but again, this is their way to cater to noobs as well, and good players didn't use espionage. Till this day, I have yet to use espionage. if I remember correctly, unless it was the very beginning of the game before I unlocked anything else to where I was forced to use it. But other than that, I don't use it. And as a matter of fact, I'm almost kind of curious to go ahead and use it to see what kind of a difference it would make. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, overall, this game, despite the fact that there are pros and cons, honestly, it's pretty well balanced for what it is, especially when I look at the pros and cons list and I see how many of each. I mean, I'm looking at this here. We're looking at 5 pros and 6 cons. I mean, that's pretty balanced. A lot more balanced than that game I asked you guys to try to guess in the very beginning of the video. But in your opinion, guys, I want you guys to tell me your opinion down in the comments section below as well. What are your pros and cons with World War II, and how would you change them? I mean, obviously, like for instance, if espionage didn't work the way it worked, and the game would have been better. Skill-based matchmaking not in. Incendiary shells didn't really have to be a thing for shotguns. You know, sniping tweaked a little bit. The score streaks being more powerful. The maps and spawns being adjusted a little bit better. I mean, you put all those things together, this game would have been a fucking gem. I mean, it already is a gem thanks to the overhaul, but it would have been serious. It would have been like, in some people's list, it's a top 3 Call of Duty. But in the majority of players' list, it is not. It's somewhere in the middle. But this could have been a top 3 contender at the very, very, very least if, in my opinion, these issues were addressed to this degree. But anyway, let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. What are your opinions about this? What are your points of view? Let everything be known down in the comment section. And again, I've only have about 2 or 3 days played on this game in total, maybe 4 at the most between both consoles. So if there's stuff about the game that you'd like to touch up even more that I haven't touched up on because I don't have quite the amount of days played on the game as I do the other ones, let me know down in the comment section. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, guys, let me know. And if you didn't, let me know what I could do to make my videos better. And I'll catch you guys on the next one and on stream.